Welcome to Tone Talks. Welcome to Tone Talks.
This is Antonio Moore. I'm coming to you with a question that came about as I was doing some research, and that is, are there more African American men incarcerated than all women in prison across the whole globe? So, essentially this comes as I was finding data for a new show, and what I saw was that I had found DOJ numbers in 2013, and basically in compiling it came to a number of around 745,000 African American men incarcerated at that date. Well, the Institute for Criminal Policy Research also released some data maybe about a few years after that, and what they showed is that across the whole globe 700,000 women were incarcerated. Now, they were trying to make the case that too many women were incarcerated, which probably is the case, but how did more black men out of 12 million black men, when there are 4 billion women, end up with more incarcerated? Let's ask that question today. So you guys know that a few years ago I did a piece, Black Male Incarceration is Real and Catastrophic, pulling that up now. In that piece, what I did is I contrasted the number of black men incarcerated to 9 countries that had 2 billion people, and it basically was equal in number. So 12 million working age black men had produced the same number of prisoners as 9 countries, India, Great Britain, a slew of them. But I had never thought to compare it to women. Now, the larger argument is that women aren't as aggressive or aren't as prone to crime. None of that holds true in America post-equality. When you look at this thing as a criminal defense attorney, both sexes produce crimes. We just haven't built the jails for women. And I really don't understand how we got here. Now, am I saying I want more women to go to jail or more black women for that instance? No. But I am saying I want equality in sentencing, equality in arrest, equality in investigations. That's the only way we get to fairness, where we can reduce the number of black men incarcerated overall. So I look at this thing and I can't really get into it until you understand the data. When you look at this thing, one of the highest incarceration rates we ever saw in the modern world was in South Africa for black men during apartheid. That was 800 per 100,000. That's like 0.8%. A normal rate in a functional society is like 0.1%. Black men between the ages of 20 and 39, as of 2013 data, were at a range of about 10,000 per 100,000. Pulling that up now from a piece I did with Legrio, so you can see a chart. That is nearly the range of 8 to 10%. We've never seen anything like it. This doesn't come as a result of violence. This doesn't come as a result of a higher propensity towards crime. This group that descended from American slavery was chosen to go to prison for everybody else to live. And we never have dealt with it. So when you look at every other group, including white males, including black women, including white men, white women, including Asian women, nobody else really goes to jail at that rate. So here we are asking the question of why. Not only of why, but is this a global phenomenon? Let's talk numbers. Let's look at more recent data. When we see this thing more recently, there's a great article from a women's site, Women in the World. And what it shows is that black female prison population declines by half as white female incarceration rates soar. This is from 2000 to 2015, however, the black female in prison rate declined by half to 100 per 100,000, or 0.1%, whereas the white female incarceration rate has only continued to rise. The current rate of white female imprisonment, 52 per 100,000, is likely among the highest in U.S. history at 0.05% of all white women. As a result, the female inmate population has undergone a dramatic change in its racial makeup. Black women continue to be imprisoned at about double the rate of white women, but the larger population of the white demographic in the U.S. meant that the number of white women in prison at the end of 2015 outnumbered the number of black women by about 2.5 to 1. So this interesting dynamic has happened where we don't want to get honest. I had a quote that I was asked to give for the Huffington Post maybe about a year and a half, 2 years ago now, and Ryan Grimm was interviewing a warden in Mississippi. This warden had built private prisons for the private prison industrial complex, and he got brutally honest, possibly on accident, and he was demanding, why is there a shortage of prisoners being sent to me? Well, prison isn't supposed to be like a product, but he was guaranteed by contract a certain amount of prisoners. So, the question we have to ask is not only why are they're guarantees for prisoners, but why are those just black men? Understand that part of what you're seeing in Mississippi is they don't have enough jobs. So essentially they're using the destruction of black male lives as a job creator for the counties. This is happening across this country. They don't have enough jobs, so they just make people go to jail for innocuous traffic violations, child support, things that are not jailable anywhere else or for anyone else. You'd be hard pressed to find a woman that goes to jail for child support across this country. So essentially you make these things very much criminalized so that you can create jobs in counties across this country. Do you understand how horrible that is for anyone? So let's be clear. Part of what you're seeing in Mississippi is that this is a job creator. This is the way that we deal with the lack of employment. We use the destruction of black males' lives that descend from slavery in America to create jobs for people to watch them. I mean, it's one of the most heinous and insidious truths of America that has not been dealt with. These people's lives are basically being criminalized in a way that no one else's life is. Go look at the data of the amount of women that go to jail for child support when they don't pay. Go look at it for yourself. What I'm saying to you is that fundamentally, you're seeing we need them to go to jail so that we can create a new job of somebody who has to take them to the jail, sentencing them to their sentence for the jail, and watch them in the jail to feed the prison industrial complex. This isn't conspiracy. It's in the article. Go Google the Mississippi Huffington Post article. In addition, it allows these local municipalities to use prison gerrymandering to use these young men's votes against themselves. What do I mean? So when you have this private prison in your area, they count the raw number of people that are in the prison, but these men can't vote. So your vote actually ends up counting way more. Look up prison gerrymandering. This is a fundamentally not just flawed system. This is an insidious system built on the backs of black males living a life of destruction and failure. You start to look at this thing and you understand none of this is explained by a propensity towards violence or any kind of genetic difference. It's just a social decision that one group is basically the throwaway. That's what we're dealing with, and I don't know how we got to a point where nobody cares. This is the biggest issue outside of wealth inequality facing America. And for African American men particularly to not be talking about this every day. For African American people to be ignoring it. For America to largely be talking about all kind of superfluous stuff, from the Russian probe to Stormy Daniels to Meghan Markle's wedding, is all so crazy. And so like for me, what I kind of wanted to do today was just explain just briefly how are there more African American men incarcerated than all women incarcerated across the whole globe. We're talking about 4 billion people versus 12 million. What? And so you can't understand this without going backwards, looking at the history of African American men in this country. So African Americans largely descend from American chattel slavery. This is a different kind of slavery than the plantation slavery of Caribbean. This is a different kind of slavery than any slavery instituted in Africa. This was a slavery where black people were treated like cows and any other product. Now, in addition, black bodies, according to a Yale professor, were worth more than all of the railroads, all of the land, everything that America had. So not only were the black bodies that were enslaved worth more than everything and created the entire undergirding for the American economy, at the same time, they were treated like animals. So this group that is now enslaved at the rate that we've seen came from a system where their ancestors were treated like animals. Do we even care? So, after that system, we had another system of a slavery by another name, as it's called by Douglas Blackman. You can see the documentary Slavery by Another Name on PBS to explain further. But peonage and convict leasing took the place of slavery. And these same black men were used basically to stay as slaves and provide free labor. Often treated worse than slaves because they were no longer product in a sense. They were no longer seen as a good that I need to take care of as my possession. That lasted for 40 years. After that, we had mass incarceration. I covered this in a documentary I did that was nominated for an Emmy called Freeway Crack in the System. Essentially, what we had is a system where black men were incarcerated at higher rates than we've ever seen in anywhere in the modern world, as a result of crack sentencing and a number of other laws that were never researched. One of the things that came out in our documentary was that when they wrote the crack sentencing laws, they didn't use no scientists, FBI agents, specialists, anybody. They just wrote the laws and said put them in jail, and gave worse sentences to the people at the bottom that sold crack than the people that had the powder cocaine that sold it at the top, if you were trying to really stop the flow. Now, in addition, what we came to find is that the government was complicit in the whole thing. Complicit in giving the product that led to black men going to jail at high rates that we've never seen before. Not only complicit in that part, but complicit in shutting down the economy using trickle down, and leading to the fact that there were no jobs in the ghetto across America. In so many ways, I pull back and I look at this thing, and I look at everything from the stop to the arrest to the sentencing to the prisons, and everything is unfair. They don't even build female prisons all that much in America. Check your state numbers. How did we get here? The Washington Post went as far as to write an article in 2015 that said maybe we shouldn't imprison women at all. How is that equal? So understand, we look at this thing and we look at something as simple as sentencing. We're not even going to deal with the other phases. We're not going to deal with the fact that you don't stop women as much. We're not going to deal with the fact that the plea bargains are much better. We're not going to deal with the fact that you see them as human and recognize their relationship with children. A study out of Michigan found that 63% longer sentences were given to men for the exact same crime as given to women. Well, if we look at the data of white men versus black men, we can easily extrapolate that black men are getting well over 300, 400% longer sentences than black women for the same crime, or maybe even 500 or 600% longer sentences than white women. I mean, the fact that this is happening, this unequal application of law, is insane. The fact that we may have a system where more African American men that descend from slavery are incarcerated in America than all women in the globe is a travesty of justice. One of the reasons that I wanted to do this video was to bring light to the fact that this is the case. Now, I don't want more women to go to jail, but I definitely want less black men to go to jail. I want less black men to be forced to be the garbage disposal of America. In so many ways, what I see is something that I showed in a piece I did on Jodi Arias so many years ago, The Changing Color of Conviction. She did everything possible that should have warranted, if you believe in it, the death penalty. But as Jeffrey Toobin said, we don't give the death penalty to people that look like Jodi Arias. We have to ask the question of, why does look play a factor? So essentially now, looking again, according to the International Center for Prison Studies, 700,000 women are incarcerated. According to the DOJ, around 745,000 black men are incarcerated. There's 4 billion women. There's only 12 million African American men, and they descend from slavery. What? So, you know, a lot of people will probably look at, there's been a decline in the number of people being incarcerated in America in recent years, but what you actually see is they're just being switched to anklets and being forced to pay for prison at home. But the number still shouldn't even be close. It shouldn't even be in the range. So not only are we not giving African American reparations, but we're giving them prison. This is Tone Talks. I wanted to come to you, have this discussion. Please feel free to join the discussion. Go to tonetalks.org to subscribe or donate and share this video. Let's get the dialogue going. There's no reason that this should be the case.